Ciao ragazzi, benvenuti. Hello everyone and welcome to Pasta Hotline. Tonight we're going to be making pasta together. This is a live stream video, so if you have any questions or good banter, you can pop those into the comment section of this video. With me tonight I have my camera crew, Nikki and Kesha. They'll also be helping with sending me the comments that letting me know the comments that you're sending through so I can answer your questions. Just a quick thanks to everyone that joined last week when we made spaghetti. It was a time that we weren't spaghetti. And it's great to see the comments and photos that you sent through. This week we're going to be making fettuccine. Fettuccine is my favorite pasta. It's the first pasta that I ever made, and it's a pasta that my nonna makes quite frequently. My nonna taught me how to make pasta, and now I want to help you make pasta. A quick recap on what we need tonight. So first of all, you're going to want lots of bench space. Make sure you clean the bench, clean your hands, all that jazz. In fact, if you've got jazz, you can put some jazz on. In terms of ingredients, we're going to need plain flour and eggs. So I use 1 egg per person, and I'll be making enough for 3 people. If you want to speed things up a little bit, you can make less pasta, so just use less eggs. I have a pasta machine to make the pasta, and that comes with a fettuccine attachment. But if you don't have one of those, don't sweat it. You can use something like a rolling pin or a wine bottle, and you can flatten it, and that's all cool. So aside from that, you just probably want to make sure that once we've made the pasta, you can cook it pretty quickly. So if you get a pot of water on the stove, if you've got a sauce ready to go, just make sure that's at hand so that we can just throw the pasta in the pot and then you can make it. All right, let's get started. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to place flour on the table and start to make a bit of a well shape. So what's going to happen there is we're going to put the eggs inside of the well. All right. You're probably wondering how big the well needs to be. So it just depends on how many people you're cooking for, and just imagine putting the right amount of eggs to fill the top of the well. So if you have a fork at hand, we'll use that to pop the eggs, and then we'll start to whisk that. So what I'm going to be doing here is, as I'm whisking, I'm slowly bringing a little bit of flour into the well. You'll notice the well's getting just a little bit bigger. I should mention as well, if you're going to cook, it's always good to have a glass of red at hand. It's a perfect ingredient. So while you're doing this, You can just flick the flour in the sides to pick up, to increase the consistency of the dough. And we're going to keep doing this until we pick up most of the flour from the sides of the well. Fork movements, pretty much just a whisking fashion. Now, if you got started with this and you got eggs everywhere, kind of like how I did at the start, that's all right. You can just sort of work it into the flour. Really, all you need to do is just gradually get a little bit of flour. Yep. Where's my smile? I'll just have a little bit of red and it's all good. No. So the wine that I'm drinking today is a Nero d'Avola, which is from Sicilia. All right, so you'll start to notice that it's getting pretty tricky to mix this or whisk it, but that's exactly what we're looking for. So, so basically, is it the question? All right, if you have too much flour, that's totally fine. Just move it to the side. So I've got a bit of extra flour and I've moved it to the side here, and that's fine. You're definitely gonna use it. So keep that close by, and what we'll do is as we start to knead the dough, we're going to be picking up more and more flour. So I don't know how big the well is that you made, Ewan, but yeah, you'll be fine. In fact, the more flour you've got, the better. So as we're making the pasta dough, the idea is to get it as firm as possible. All right, and so for those that didn't see last week, this little kneading technique, essentially what I'm doing is I'm pushing it down with my palm and stretching out the dough. And when I'm doing that, it's actually picking up all the flour that's on the table. And then you kind of just fold it over and then knead it again. So you can add flour on top as well. So in terms of how we're kneading this, I keep spreading flour out on the table. Try to get like an even spread there. And that means like as you knead it, you're going to be picking up flour into the bits that stretch in the dough. Sometimes what people do is they like to start like sort of like scrunching it and pushing it down. That's not really going to pick up as much flour, so just get into the sort of like the habit of putting flour on the table and then pushing it through the flour. And slowly that's going to get the dough into a much better place. If you're making pasta for more than 3 people, that's probably going to take a lot longer to do this kneading process. One thing that I do if I'm making it for more people, just a little tip, is well, if you're making it with friends, you can make lots of little wells and get everyone to do a little bit. Or you can just make one really big well and try your luck and see how you go. So I generally chuck on a record in the background whilst I'm making pasta. Listening to a record and drinking wine is great pastime, really relaxing. The latest one that I've got is Nightmares on Wax. It's a very cool record, nice lounge music. All right. You'll start to notice that this is already starting to take shape. So you'll find that from like the omelette-like mixture at the start, it's now pretty much like a dough form. It's going to be quite soft, and like I mentioned before, we want to continue to work this dough so that it's really easy to flatten out later. All right. We just had the postman arrive at our door, so it's perfect timing for a live stream. Don't know what the postman's doing at this time. It's late. Let me see. So in terms of consistency of this dough, you'll notice it's a pretty repetitive process, but you'll notice that as the dough is stretched out, it's revealing kind of like sort of wetter patches. You can pick up the flour with those and it'll really start to help firm up the dough. So you can see that's still not ready. So those are the bits that are picking up the flour. And as you start to do that more and more, it's going to get better. All right. Yeah, well, the question from Elliot is, or a comment from Elliot is, if you've got too much flour on the table, you can put more eggs. Downside is you're just going to be making more pasta, it'll take a bit longer. But it's not really a bad thing if you think about it. You can make extra pasta, save it for lunch the next day, and just plate up a bigger plate. Egg roulette. I actually need a little bit more flour. A bit more wine. So when we're making pasta, and I'll show you later, but we're going to lay out like a tea towel. Well, I use a tea towel, or if you've got a pasta rack, you can let it hang. And yeah, that's just good to sort of cover it and put it in a place like the pantry. Just like normal pasta, it can keep for quite a while. Yeah, very nice. It's a good way. I'm going to interact with the people at home now. Elliot, what's your favourite pasta? What's your favorite pasta? You're not going to overdo it, Glenn, I'll tell you that much. Basically, working the pasta is going to feel like a laborious task, but it's a labor of love, Decca. It's a labor of love. The more you work it, honestly, the better it will be. So work it, Decca.
Because harder is better.
Yeah, for those that are making it for the first time as well, it's just like me. It's the first time I made pasta was fettuccine. And yeah, it can be pretty confusing. Like, how long do I do this for? This doesn't seem right. But really, it's just about like understanding the basic components. So I would say it's over time you get used to understanding how much flour you do with the eggs. But you can always add flour. Okay. Yeah, I can. Gnocchi is similar to, I don't know, it's just like a little puff. People know what gnocchi is. I don't need to explain what that is. Orecchiette it's like a smaller pasta. Would you use orecchiette in a soup, would you say? Or just a plate of orecchiette? Yes. All right. So you'll notice that this dough is getting a lot harder to work with. That's a really good thing, to be honest. That means that this process is working. And you'll notice that the dough is not full-on caked in flour. We're just gradually picking up flour bit by bit. All right. Week 5. So in week 5, we'll be making gnocchi. If you're wondering why gnocchi is different from pasta, it's got potato in it. It's actually mostly potato. It's very delicate to work with. But I'm going to keep the focus on the fettuccine today, for now. It's similar to spaghetti, for those who don't actually know what the fettuccine looks like. Just a slightly flatter and wider piece of pasta. All right. My dough is getting pretty tricky to work with now, which is a good sign. Yeah. So once I'm pretty happy with the consistency of the dough, and we're getting there, we're going to cut it up into even pieces and make some discs that will then feed, well, I've got a pasta machine, as I mentioned before, and we'll feed it through that. Yeah. Well, so Alan says orecchiette is just a bad version of a dumpling. Yep. Look, each to their own. They're basically similar, yeah, but I don't know. Say that again. Ah, so Elliot, I hear you had a gnocchi disaster in 2018. You want to shed some light on that scenario? Yeah. Okay. Yep. All right. I'm getting a good feeling about how this dough is turning out. It's pretty hard to work with. Picking up most of the flour on the table. Okay, you can see it's pretty tricky. Question from Ewan? So Ewan, you've managed to get pasta on your keyboard. I don't know how you've done that, but actually, no, I do. You're watching the live stream. Look, don't panic. That's the first step. Take another sip of wine. You'll be fine. Yeah. No, oh yeah. I'd say maybe just get like a tissue or something and brush it off lightly. It's really not rocket science, but it's a likely scenario to happen. Okay, so as you're making pasta, you're probably got some remnants stuck on the table, and when we want to roll this out, we're going to want to try and clean some of that up. So I'm going to do that probably very soon. All right, I don't think I can knead this that much more. This is pretty tough. It's pretty tough. What's wrong with my left arm? What do you mean? Ask Jimmy for more information. There's nothing wrong with my left arm. The harder the better, Declan. You need to keep working it. It's imperative that you work it. I can't work this one anymore. It's to describe what it's like if you push the pasta in, it's going to bounce back at roughly that pace. Okay, you'll notice that there's flour all over it still, but it's not swimming in flour. If you would do a little test, you can like stretch the pasta, and if it's like the same level of dryness on the pasta or a similar level, your pasta is pretty well covered in flour in the middle as well as the outside. So we're going to, when we cut it, you should see a really nice texture. Aha, very funny. No, it's all good. Very good, Jimmy. You funny man. Alrighty. There you go, you see? Multitask. Alright, I think I'm ready with this. So I'm going to make this a cue to, if you've got a pasta machine and you haven't set it up, you can set it up. Otherwise, I'll just take you through some of the basic steps. If you've got a rolling pin, you can use that to flatten your pasta. But we're going to get this fixed to the table, and then I'm going to cut this up and we can start to flatten it out. So, bit of a clue. The knob on the end of the pasta machine, you want to be facing on the inside of the table, and put it on the end of the table where you can fix one of these guys on. That's not going anywhere. You don't want to do it too tight because then you probably won't be able to get it off later. In fact, what I'm going to do is actually move it inwards a little bit because the pasta will come through this way anyway. There we go. All right, if you've got a pasta machine, you'll probably notice there's numbers on the side of this dial. Just put it on the leftmost. Mine is a 0. The smallest number. So to crank it, you can lift it out and move it. And what you're noticing is the 2 cylinders within the machine, they're getting closer or further. So to make pasta, you generally want to start with the widest gap in these cylinders and then slowly flatten it and compress the pasta even more. So I've got this on the table. I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. A good technique is just to grab a spatula and you can tip it on its side and just sort of tip the edges like that. For the people that don't have pasta machines, you'll still want to clear your table a little bit. What you're going to do is you're going to want to cut the pasta ball. So we're going to cut this into even slices, and we're then going to flatten that out. So if you don't have a pasta machine, you can use a rolling pin or a wine bottle. So what we're trying to do here is just make the pasta ball into like manageable sizes so that it'll actually fit through the pasta machine. If you try to put the whole thing flattened out through there, it might be a bit too difficult to work with. All right, so when you cut the pasta, you'll notice that it's like really nice and dense. That's a good sign. So I've cut these into 2 equal pieces. Yeah? Ooh, okay. So Rachel Tan, was it? That has a bit of a pasta disaster? Yeah. Okay, we're gonna help Rachel Tan. So she's got a pasta machine and she's worked out that there's not enough places to put the pasta machine on the edge of the table. You can fix this problem. Rachel Tan, if you have like a big book, like a hard-covered book, that might help get a little bit more of a ledge over the table. I doubt you have like, maybe a chopping board might help. So get that there to help get the edge on the table. See if that works. All right. Okay, so I've flattened the pasta pieces out into 2 even pieces. They're probably even a little bit big, so I might even cut them in half again, so I've got quarters. The reason why I'm doing that is because when I feed them through the pasta machine, these will inevitably get a little bit wider. We've got someone saying that their nonna use a broom handle to make pasta. That's incredible. All right. Okay, so there's one thing that I need for the pasta machine. Bear with me. Okay. So In order to roll the pasta, you need a handle. So go. All right. The handle will go in the side of the pasta machine where there's a hole, and it just turns it, nice and easy. All right. Which camera have we got, Nick? Okay. So you don't have to stress if these are not like perfectly round pieces or anything like that. The idea is the piece of pasta is kind of like a fillet that you'll work through the pasta machine, and it's not exceeding the width of the pasta machine. So if you are rolling, you could probably choose the size that you want to do that at. But what I'm doing is I'm just making sure the edges of the pasta are in the machine and then rolling that through. All right. Okay, so what I've done is, as I've rolled the pasta, I've then folded it, and I'm going to feed it through the machine again, but on a 90-degree angle. And the reason why I do that is you'll see that it creates a straight edge with the fold, and we're going to repeat this process a few times, and we should end up with more straight edges. You can see it's really nice and flush. Okay. What we'll do is, as we roll this out, and okay. Declan says his pasta is a little bit too flaky. Declan, that's because you've got a little too much flour. What I recommend is, if your pasta's too flaky at this stage and it's not looking nice and like creamy, I guess, dust some of the flour off. If you can dust a bunch of the flour off, Declan, and get some of that excess flour, that'll be fantastic. What will happen is, if you put something that's a little bit too flaky through the pasta machine, it's probably going to break the pasta into two pieces. But look, that's not too much of a problem. You can just piece it back together as best you can. Maybe even add, look, you could probably add a little bit of water, but sparingly, because what you're going to do is almost get back into the kneading process. Does Ewan have a pasta machine, or is he using a... Ewan, with your question, do you have a pasta machine, or are you just rolling it out with a rolling pin? Let us know. Okay, so where I've gotten the pasta at the moment is I've got like some pretty nice straight edges, and the pasta is probably like a thumb width of your pasta machine. If you're rolling this, just like a rough guide for a piece roughly this size will be fine. But what we're going to do is we're going to change this dial over time in stages, and we're also going to add a little bit of flour. Okay, back to Ewan's question where he's using a rolling pin. If you're rolling it out, for a fettuccine, you probably want to get it to I don't know, about 2 millimeters thick. What's going to happen is when you throw it in a pot of boiling water, that's going to expand the pasta. So, yeah. And yeah, so you can start it off. Wait, what's your question? Yeah, so you can roll it to the thickness that's a little bit thinner than the way you want it to end up. At the moment, I'm just running this through the first gauge, and that to me is too thick. I'm going to keep going down this dial. So in order to do that, if you have a pasta machine, just lift and twist it, and you're going to repeat this process now. I'm no longer folding the pasta. I'm just running it through. I worked it out. Okay. So I'm going to pick up the pace just a little bit, because if you're using a pasta machine, you'll notice it starts to feed through quite easily after a while. If you're rolling it, you might get through thinking I've rolled this enough. All right. So pretty much the process from here is fairly simple. You're just continually feeding it through the pasta machine. Like so. I tend to do it about, I don't know, a handful of times. Basically, I change the dial when you're feeding it through the pasta machine and there's no grip, basically. So I'll just keep moving up through the dials. What I try to do is, for the way I like the fettuccine, is I go up probably about 5 or 6 steps, and then I cook it al dente. If you're wondering what al dente is, it's when the pasta's just a little bit firm. Okay. I'd be curious to know, for those who are cooking at home or making pasta at home, how many people they're cooking for. So if you want to let me know in the comments, that'd be good. Okay. I'm going to move that up another dial. All right, I reckon I'll probably go to a 5 or 6 on this. Okay, it's good. Yeah, I just wanted to know. Ewan's making it for 1, Declan's making it for 4. So for Ewan, who's making it for 1, you probably are going to get through this quite quickly, which is nice. So you could probably take a few more sips of wine. For Declan, sounds like it's the first time you're making pasta, and you're making it for 4. So what you'll probably want to do is, if you want to keep up with me on the video, you could make a probably slightly thicker fettuccine, because it'll take a little bit longer to flatten out that much pasta. Or if you've got helpers, don't even sweat it. Like that's the great thing. If you've got helpers, you can get double time, which is good. you're making pasta all together. Wholesome experience. Okay, here's a quick snapshot of how the pasta is coming along. So you see it's quite rectangular on the edges, and it's quite flat. So I'm going to put, you can do this from time to time, you just sprinkle a little bit of flour, give that a rub there, to the other side. So last week when I made spaghetti, I went to a number 2 and I had a spaghetti attachment and made a thick spaghetti, which was good. So the fettuccine can keep going flatter. Okay. Okay. Declan, you say that your pasta's still a little bit flaky. You probably still got a little bit too much flour. You might want to try and add a little bit of water to it. Just a little bit. That's fine though. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to try and help you here, Decca. If your pasta dough is looking a little bit flaky, something like this maybe, I'd imagine, okay? Try and dust off as much as possible. And then if you can get like a little bit of water, I don't have any water with me, but try and stretch out the pasta, put a bit of water, start folding it over, and then getting through. It's extra sticky. Okay. You got to send in a photo via Instagram, Decca, so we can see what's going on. I'd imagine that you said you used 4 eggs. Yeah, once I see a photo, I'll be able to give you a lot better advice. See if you can send in a photo. All right, so this is like what one sheet looks like. I'm not going to make all of this pasta because it will be here for a little while. But what I'm going to do is show you one more, answer a couple more like questions, hopefully help Decca out who's having a bit of a pasta disaster. But yeah, so what we're going to do is we'll do one more of these. We'll start to then cut out the fettuccine pieces. So I'm going to do this one a bit quicker. And the reason why I want to do 2 is so I can show you 2 ways to cut it. So make sure you get your fold on the pasta. Straight edge. All right. Don't forget, if you're making pasta and you're not making it for that many people and you're ready to cook it soon, you probably want to just get your water on the stove on the boil. So I'm going to do, yeah, I'd like to do the same actually. Okay, yep. All right. Okay. Okay. So for me, while I'm doing this, Kesha is going to be putting the water on boil, to a boil. Oh gosh. Ewan, you've got a question of what if I use self-raising flour? Ewan, did you use self-raising flour? That's, I don't know, your pasta's gonna cook like a cake, I guess. You want to use plain flour when making pasta. Yeah, don't use self-raising flour when making pasta. Self-raising flour rises basically, so if you're going to put that in the oven, which we're not putting this in the oven, yeah, it has a rising agent. So plain flour is good because I don't know exactly why, but supposed to use plain flour. You can make pasta out of other things like semolina. You can add things to your pasta. Some people put like squid ink if you want to be like really restaurant fancy. Some ground spinach makes it green. Pumpkin makes it orange. Ah. All right. All right. So I'll give you a bit of a heads up on making the actual fettuccine. So, because we're just making pasta sheets here. If you have the fettuccine attachment, which would come with your pasta machine, we'll just attach that to the pasta machine. But if you don't have a pasta machine, I'll roll this one up and show you a really effective way to cut it. And this one, I will run through the pasta machine. So we have two examples. Yes. So we've got a photo now from Decca. That looks good. That's not flaky.
And then the next photo.
Okay. Okay. So with the photo that you sent through, Decca, that's not a pasta disaster. You need to just fold it over and probably cut it into a smaller piece so it's easier to work with. So if I'm making pasta and I'm like, this is not happening, this is not working for me right now, just make it more manageable. Cut it into a smaller piece. And if you keep folding that flakiness that you see will compress and then start to become more dense. The reason why that's happened is you probably didn't knead it enough, or you had a little bit too much flour, which meant you should have kneaded a little bit more as well. More energy. Okay, I'm on my last dial now, so this is going to be pretty quick from here. All right, probably one more, then I'll show you how to make the fettuccine. Okay, great. So I always put flour on it afterwards. That stops it from sticking. So if you're making a lot of pasta, you got lots of sheets, it's not going to stick to each other. And yeah, so this is the fettuccine attachment. You'll notice that there are like lips which you can then hook into on the actual pasta machine, like so. What we'll do, so they're both, this is the fettuccine one here, or the traditional size. If you're cutting this, that's the the length you want to go for. So this is probably about half a centimetre. If you're cutting it and you cut it a bit wider, that's more of a tagliatelle. So what we're going to do with our pasta sheets now, I'm going to show you now. So if you don't have a pasta machine, don't worry about that. With your pasta sheet, you can fold it in half and then give that a bit of a roll. So make sure you've got plenty of flour, because if you don't have plenty of flour, that's going to be a bit of a sticking nightmare. Okay, so just to recap, I've rolled one up for the people that don't have a pasta machine, and what I'm going to do with the other one is I'm going to cut it in the middle. So this was probably about, I don't know, 60 or so centimeters long, and cutting it into two makes just the pasta a bit more of a traditional size. With the pasta machine, I'm going to roll this one through. I'll show you this one now. And before it rolls through completely, you want to just grab the edges, and then you've got it. So I'm just going to leave it here for now. For those who don't have a pasta machine, Nick, if you're going to bring the camera around, is because this is rolled up, and you can start to cut that. And you want to try and get the same sort of consistent size. So to give you an idea, when you unroll that, you've also got fettuccine. Now that's an easy way to do it if you want to make it and you don't want to cut them and worry about them being all sorts of different sizes. So the advantage of rolling it is they're going to be the same size. I'll just finish both of those. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, you want to make sure the water is boiled on the stove. Make sure your water's boiled, because I'm going to cook this pretty soon. Once you've made your pasta and you're ready to throw that into the boiling water, just make sure you've salted your water first. Salt it a lot. Okay. Is the water boiled? Okay. It's fine, I'm only cooking a little bit. So I'm only going to cook enough just to show you what it's like. Now you can leave the pasta sitting to dry for a little while. You don't have to, you can throw it straight into the pot. Okay, do you want to get the roving cam, Nick? So I've got a bowl of water here, and this is salted. And yeah, you can just throw your fresh pasta in. Can I put it in? I have to put it in now. All right, so yeah, cooking fresh pasta doesn't take that long as well. So if you've got your sauce at hand, you can start to heat that up and make sure your sauce is warm. We've got a Napolitana, which is similar to a bolognese, it's just vegetarian. It's basically olive oil, onions, tomatoes. I use whole peeled tomatoes, basil, garlic, a bit of chili is nice. Yeah, lots of basil is good. So, do you want to zoom in on the pasta here, Nick? So the pasta is basically going to get a little bit lighter as it's cooking. Make sure if you threw it in, you want to throw it into boiling water so it's not soaking the pasta. Yeah, it probably takes about a minute longer since I threw it in. The perfect thing to do is, if you want to make sure it's to your preference, you can just have a taste, see if it's the right density. Alright. Generally, it's just like cooking normal pasta this bit. It's pretty easy. I like to do it old school, use tongs. Keeping a bit of pasta water on it is nice as well. I like to use so the types of sauces that are good with fettuccine. Obviously a red sauce, that's what I'm doing here. You could have like a Alfredo, fettuccine Alfredo is pretty traditional. I put a Parmesan cheese on this. Parmesan's very nice. Oh, there's different types of Parmesans. I reckon if you can get hold of like a Parmesan wheel and then like grate it, that's going to be a nicer Parmesan. But yeah, there you have it. So we've made fettuccine, didn't take too long, and yeah, you can whip it up with the sauce, and voila. Ciao.